Sam52 here. Today I'm going to talk about some starter builds that I made, and I'm going to start off with the one that I'm playing actually on stream right now. So I'm doing all of this on stream as well, so if you want to check out my stream, I'm going to be streaming, well, pretty much every day. So feel free to drop by if you have any questions about these builds or anything else. But yeah, so this one is the one that I'm playing. The reason why I recommend this build is it's life-based, it's cyclone. It can go up to like 12 million DPS, so it can do endgame content straight up. You can start with this build, you can end with this build. You know, it's just going to be overall really good. It's going to get stun immunity from the cluster jewels, it's going to get endurance charges from cluster jewels, and until then you can just use the stun threshold on a mastery and the Brine King Pantheon, and that's going to be just fine. But even without that, you're probably not going to get stunned that much. But I still recommend that you use these two. But yeah, it uses the Void Forge sword, Lore Weave. So this one is going to be probably somewhat expensive, but yeah. Besides that, everything should be doable. The belt is not going to be Rislatus Coil, but it's going to be Arn's Anguish. But for every one of these builds, you should just check out the path of building for the latest updates. You see it's always updated, and just use this. And it's basically really good. Converts physical to fire. It's gonna be just a lot of elemental damage. But yeah, so that's the one that I'm playing. The other one that I recommend is actually Skeleton Instability Necromancer. So this one is not has not been used much, but that's mostly because minions have been nerfed. Well, not minions. I mean, yeah, minions have been nerfed, but their life was nerfed mostly for like a couple of leagues already. But even after all of that, this build is still strong because there are a lot of nodes and masteries and cluster jewels that can bring your minion life like up to huge numbers, right? And that's where instability comes into play. You get your like minions to as much life as possible, and then you just let them explode. And they explode. So you see here I'm using Vol skeletons. You just summon a million skeletons on a boss, and he just gets deleted, like just straight up dies. Same with Cyrus. So it's huge DPS, like huge numbers. Small downside is that you cannot use a shield because you need 2 of these scepters, which basically make your minions die that fast. And you're gonna need an expensive helmet, but this helmet is honestly not that hard to get right now. I think last league it was something like 6 exalted orbs or something like this. It should be the same this league and every other league, but like worst case scenario is gonna be a couple of X more, but it's very doable. The reason for that is because people don't really tend to go for minion life, but minion life is excellent in our situation. People usually go for minion damage and another damage skill, but minion life is going to be really nice because this is basically damage for us as well. So yeah, this helmet is the most expensive thing. Everything else is pretty easy. The reason why it's a good starter is because you just need these 2 scepters, right? So as soon as you get these, you can just buy them off of people. Even now, it's most likely something like 1 chaos. You just buy 2 of these, and you can do the build until the end game. So yeah. It's also kind of tanky because I use determination and a lot of life, something like 6.5k life, so it should be pretty good. But yeah, that's another starter that I recommend. This one is probably one of the best starters. So the RF Jug that I made, so this one I made the last league in Scourge League, and some of you may know, but Scourge League was ultra reapy. Like you could just die like a pig at any point in time. And this build could just face tank like everything. Up to 200 Scourge stacks, no problem, right? So this one was ultra tanky. I mean, it's Juggernaut, it's supposed to be tanky, plus it's RF, you're going for life, something like 6k life you're gonna have, and this build just doesn't die. The reason for that is, like you can see here, you can face tank like the Elder Slam, so he's just gonna slam, boom, nothing. The beam from Cyrus, you see the beam, like this is Awakening 8. Boom, 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 nothing. So it's ultra tanky, just doesn't die. It's a good starter because it's life based, You can even start RFing from like level 22 already, because there are a lot of new region nodes that they've added to the game. So as early as level 22 you can start RFing, but you're gonna need some, if you want to do it that early, you're gonna need some items that have region, something like a springleaf shield, something like that. Besides that, even if you don't have it, you can start at something like level 30, and it's gonna be nice. After that, it's smooth sailing, and it's just Juggernaut. You just take tankiness, and then some more tankiness, stun immunity, nothing too special. But let me just show you the gear. So, my gear, okay, here. The most important item is, of course, the breast dome, because it gives you +5 to all maximum elemental resistances. You need this because RF keeps degenning you, so you need this. And it gives you a lot of armor, something like 4k armor, which is insane. If you can get something like a good corruption like I did, 6% increased maximum life, that's nice. You can also get +1 corruption to all maximum resistances, and then you basically won the game, because your chest piece gives you +6 to all elemental resistances, which is kind of insane. And then we use Sulfur's Frame for +4 to maximum elemental resistances, and then on the 3 you also get +3 to all elemental resistances. So you're basically like almost immune to elemental damage. Not only that, but the Juggernaut Ascendancy, so this one, gives you 5% less damage taken from everything. And this one gives you 8% less damage taken from elemental damage. So elemental damage just simply cannot deal damage to you. It's just that simple. The downside is, of course, it doesn't deal as much damage as maybe Inquisitor would. Inquisitor can deal more damage because it can stack more effective life. RF is based off of your effective life. This one has lower effective life. I mean, not effective life, but like flat life, right? So this one has 6k flat life, while an Inquisitor would probably, with the energy shield, go to something like 9k. So of course it's going to be dealing more damage with RF, but to compensate, you can use just a 6-link here. I mean, you use a 6-link searing bond, and that searing bond is what compensates for the lack of damage of RF. The RF you're gonna keep in your helmet. You craft it with the Essence of Horror. Elder Helmet, you want to get that concentrated effect or burning damage, or even both if you can, and then you basically have a pseudo 6-link or 7-link, or maybe even 8-link, right? And yeah, that's basically all there is to it. Really good starter, really tanky. Let's go to the next one. This one was actually buffed this league. So this one wasn't buffed this league, but it's still good as in the last league. It wasn't nerfed at all. This one, as I said, was slightly nerfed over the leagues, but still excellent. And this one I just discovered, so I think it's really good. Actually, this one got buffed, the Blazing Headsman, because the Arn's Anguish got +1 to endurance charge, and we're using that bell. Okay, but this one actually got a straight up buff, 29% more damage overall, and this is not counting effectiveness of added damage, which honestly we should count in this build, because this build uses the effectiveness of added damage. It uses it through Arcane Cloak. When you use Arcane Cloak, it sucks all of your mana, well, most of your mana, and depending on how much mana it used up, that's how much added lightning damage you get. So this added lightning damage was also increased from 100% to 160%. So even that is like 60% more. So in total it will be something like 40% more damage overall for this build, right? So that's a pretty huge buff. The only thing is, they also nerfed Unleash. So instead of Unleash, we're no longer using Unleash, but we're self-casting it with Spell Echo, Greater Spell Echo, and faster casting, right? But that's gonna lock you in place. But this is why this build was made super tanky. So you can see like the example when Unleash was pretty good, but now Unleash is kind of gutted like a fish. Nice beat. But you can still use it as Unleash, but it's gonna deal the same damage as before. If you want to utilize the more damage buffs that they gave us, then you should do it like a self-cast with Spell Echo and all of that, right? And that's why I remade the build with that in mind, so it actually gets the buffs. So how Mana Bond works, you basically use your skill and it sucks a lot of your mana. You can see here in the picture, like it keeps draining your mana. The more mana it uses up, the more damage you're doing, right? So if you have the lowest amount of mana, that's when you're going to be dealing the most damage. And you want to spawn your Arcane Cloak before the fight, so you get added extra lightning damage and stuff like that. It's super tanky for the reason it uses Mind Over Matter. It's actually 50% Mind Over Matter. So even if you have something like 3000 life, it's going to be basically doubled, because you're going to get that in mana as well. Because 50% is dealt to mana first and then to life. So it's something like, even with 3k life, you have 6k life. And then you have some energy shield, you have a lot of energy shield. Because what I did is I converted, well, not converted, but I made it so you get a lot of extra energy shield depending on the mana you have. Since we're Mind Over Matter, we have something like 8k mana, and that gives you like 4k energy shield. So not only do you have a lot of life, a lot of mana, but you also have energy shield. Energy shield which you can restore with Life Leech and Wicked Ward. So we're actually using Life Leech, Energy Shield Leech, and Wicked Ward. So it's super tanky, and it deals a lot of damage because it got buffed. So yeah, I actually recommend this as a starter because it's really cheap to build. So my gear, I can show you. I'm using Replica Calm's Heart. That's super cheap, nobody uses this except us. Mind Spiral, this is like, I don't know, 10 chaos. Ignorance West we replaced with Pledge of Hands, even though if you're going to be using Unleash, then you still want to go with Ignorance West. And everything else is just rares. Skyfort is actually important because you need this for stun immunity. So this build kind of struggles with stuns until you get Skyfort, but after that, like, it bases your stun threshold on 500% of your mana instead of life, which is insane. So you basically cannot get stunned when you get these. And everything else is just a rare, and that's it, is foible. Really good build, really good starter. Yeah, also recommended. And the last one that I recommend as a starter, actually, but this is just for the build guides. I have a couple of more in my path of building that I haven't made guides yet. But yeah, I'm gonna talk about those soon. So, Blooming Flicker, this one is simple. This is also one attack-based build, but it's a flicker, so maybe you people, most people won't like it. But I actually recommend this build because it's simple to make, it's physical based, and it's overall just easy to get into, right? So it's a good starter because it's life based, physical, so you just need a good weapon. For example, you can just start off with the, what do you call it, Terminus Cest. As soon as you get to level 51, you can use this and you can just start flickering, right? Until then, you can just use any melee skill that you feel comfortable with. So something like Sweep, Molten Strike, Cleave, Perforate. One person said that they dislike Perforate, so... But yeah, any skill is fine. Any physical skill that uses swords is going to be fine until you get to level 51. Then you can use Terminus Cest and start flicking. After that, you go for the Exquisite Blade, but at that point you need to have your Frenzy generation, so you need to have on your 3 8% on hit to get Frenzy, 20% quality Frenzy as a skill gem, and stuff like that. So you can sustain these Frenzy charges, of course, without Terminus Cest. But yeah, overall, it's really easy to get into, and you can later on transition to a stronger flicker. So you know that there are flickers that utilize the cold damage. So this one cannot reach the numbers of the cold flicker because it's not an elemental build, but a physical one. But you can safely transition from this one to that one because you're still a raider. That build is also a raider, and yeah, just overall a blast to play with because you can just clear maps in seconds. It's really fun, and it can kill bosses pretty well as well. So that's my last recommendation. And this one I wanted to talk about. It's not a starter build, but I'm just gonna mention it anyway. This one got a huge buff, like around 40%, 45% more damage, not counting damage effectiveness. So that's a huge buff, and no other debuffs, right? So there's no downsides. We didn't use Unleash, Spell Echo, we didn't use Spell Totems, only for Wither, but that doesn't matter. And the curses are permanent, the marks are permanent, but this build didn't use the marks anyway, so we don't care. A lot of damage. The problem with this one is it's not a starter, so you need chevrons. What it does, it basically casts a hexblast, so I can show you here. So you cast a curse, and then you cast hexblast, and then you basically just decimate everything, right? On a boss, you're gonna need to wait a little bit longer for the maximum doom to apply. So you cast your curse, you wait 1 second, you cast hexblast, and you deal something like flat 6 million damage. I'm not kidding. Like, you can check the path of building, and you're just gonna cast a curse, wait 1 second, cast hexblast, and you're gonna flat out deal 6 million damage. So that's super insane, like crazy. And the advantage of that is you don't need to stand still, right? You can cast a curse, and while you're waiting that 1 second, you can dodge his attacks, right? Then you just recast hexblast, and you just keep repeating this process. And really easy to play, really tanky 7k energy shield, temporal chains which slows everything, aspect of the spider which also slows everything, and nothing will touch you most of the time, and even when it does, you're gonna have a lot of energy shield to counteract it. So overall, a really nice build, just not a starters because it depends on Chevron's wrappings and energy shield. But yeah. Also check the path of building, of course, because this gear is a little bit outdated. I'm gonna list it here that it's a little bit outdated. No longer using Presence of Chiula. Even though you can still use it, then you need to use different ascendancies. You don't need stun immunity then from the ascendancy, because you have Presence of Chiula. Then you can take something else like the explosion thing, Profane Bloom, and stuff like that. But yeah, just check the path of building and everything's gonna be listed there. Okay, that covers the builds that I've updated up until now. And also I want to show you a few builds that I've been working on. Let me just save this, go back, and let's go to this lightning tendies. Okay, so lightning tendrils, they got a huge buff. So I'm gonna convert and update all of this as soon as possible. Probably today, and after that I'm gonna, of course, provide the paste pins below this video, so you can check the description for all of these builds, of course, or you can check the guides for the builds that I have the guides. But okay, lightning tendrils. So this one is also mind over matter, so it's also 50% mind over matter, because we have Cloak of Defiance, which gives mind over matter, and it gives 10% of damage taken from mana before life, so that's 40%, and from Inquisitor another 10%. So this is also 50% mind over matter. That means your total life is basically doubled. So if it says 3.6 life, it's actually 7.2 life, which is amazing. And it also has energy shield, which we regenerate with the Wicked Ward, or with elemental damage leached as energy shield. So you can either leech the energy shield back, or you can just wait for the recharge, and then it's not going to be stopped because it's Wicked Ward. You also have life leech because we're Inquisitor, and mana regen is just pretty insane, right? Because mind over matter, it's quite a bit. Besides that, the damage is, you see, pretty high, even though I haven't updated the numbers yet. And lightning tendrils got a huge buff, so it's gonna be really good. The reason why I placed Phantasmal here is because I think Phantasmal received the largest buff out of all of the versions of lightning tendrils, but you can even use a default one. Then you can probably go to level 21, and that one is going to deal a bit more damage normally, but Phantasmal is going to deal much more with the stronger pulse. You see, the stronger pulse on the Phantasmal is insane. If we switch to default, it's going to be something less, right? So it's up to you. I think the Phantasmal one is better, but yeah, then you depend on the stronger pulses of lightning tendrils. I took a lot of AoE, so you see AoE here. Well, not a lot, but I think a sufficient amount of AoE, so it feels good. And besides that, it's just self-cast where you need to stand. And well, I took faster casting because I want to ramp up that stronger pulse as soon as possible. Okay, that's more or less for the lightning tendrils. Really good, a life-based mind over matter, and also pretty cheap items, right? Pretty cheap items, all of these. Cloak of Defiance, pretty cheap. Ignorance West, Mind Spiral. The only one that's kind of expensive is Skyforth. So yeah, pretty good build. Also recommend as a starter. So let's not save this for now. And let's go to the last build that I made. And that one was EK Chieftain. So this is actually a Chieftain build that uses ethereal knives. The reason I went for ethereal knives is because somebody requested it. Somebody wanted ethereal knives that get converted to fire, but that's super tanky, right? So you can see the DPS is really high, 5 million DPS self-cast, but it's super tanky. So it has 7.5k life. It's a chieftain. You recoup 30% of your life back. So 30% of the damage that they deal to you, you get back over 4 seconds. It's kind of like secondary regen. You see this build has huge regen, but this doesn't count the recoup mechanic. So you're getting a lot of regen, or a lot of life leech, like an insane amount of life leech and regen by default, but you're also recouping all of the damage done to you. So you're basically like a regenerative sponge, right? It's pretty good. Turned out really good. It uses this, where it converts strength to spell damage. A lot of block. Look at the block. So 75% chance, 60% chance. Yes, it's reduced, but it's really good because you restore life as well every time you block with this stuff mastery. And overall, I think a really tanky build and a really good one to start off with if you wanna play something like ethereal knives. There's a lot of resistances as well. You can check under calcs how much damage you can take, and you can see it's pretty tanky. Okay, and that basically covers all of the builds that I've made for now. I'm gonna provide as I said, all of these path of buildings below in the description. And as I said, if you want to check out what I'm playing currently and what I'm doing, or you have any questions whatsoever, you can check out my stream. I'm gonna be streaming like most of the days. Just try to find me. I don't really have a schedule, but I try to stream like from early morning then up until whenever I feel like it. So yeah, feel free to drop by if you want, and that's about it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.